everyone. Nice to have you with us. We've got quite a few people here today, and I think it's a great opportunity for what I believe is going to be a dramatic shift in the way that small companies raise business beginning in 2013. First, a little bit about me. I am a business and estate planning attorney located in Orange County, an active member in the Irvine Chamber, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate today. I have been involved with private funding and some public funding for over 26 years, so I am very familiar with how the current process works. And as a result of that, I'm even more excited about the opportunities that are going to be presented by crowdfunding. The title of this presentation is A Network Solution to Donation and Capital Needs. Crowdfunding in the United States is going to explode beginning next year, and I'll explain the reasons for that in a little bit. But it truly is a network solution. There are going to be tremendous opportunities not only for the companies who are seeking capital, but for all ancillary providers of service and products to step into this new way of raising capital. Let's just get right to it. There are currently two types of crowdfunding that are alive and well in the United States. And just as a little bit of background, crowdfunding has been occurring both on a donation and equity basis outside the United States, primarily in Great Britain, for about the past 4 years. We've adopted some of the principles that they've already been using, so we know that it is a model that can work. Currently, there are two types of crowdfunding. Donation-based, which already exists and is very active. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then the other one is the securities-backed crowdfunding, which the rules are currently being written. It was passed into law in April of 2012, and the Securities and Exchange Commission is trying to figure out how they're going to be dealing with a large number of investors that are going to be making small investments in existing businesses or startups. As a factual matter and as a best practices, the average investment is somewhere between $25 and $35. So if you're going out to raise up to $1 million, you're going to have a lot of investors that you're going to have to be dealing with and giving information to. Essentially, the securities-backed crowdfunding is an expansion of what I call the F&F round of financing. Typically, financing for businesses has been either through an investment by an SBA-type vehicle, going directly to a financial institution, raising some initial capital, and then perhaps either being able to survive on your own and expand on your own, or going on to an angel or venture group after that for what we call mezzanine financing as another round. The state of that situation is difficult at best. The number of SBA loans in the United States has decreased by 43%, essentially because banks have such strict requirements for lending that many qualified companies with great ideas just can't qualify. So the family and friends round has been the only alternative to those people who were not able to qualify for an angel or venture group. Typically, those groups want an exit strategy between 36 months and 5 years, are looking for that either through a merger with a public entity, through the sale of the business or part of the business. And so for somebody that is looking to actually develop a brand and a business over a longer period of time, the family and friends, in other words, going to people who you know and friends who might be willing to invest in you, has been the only way to get any financing. And what the new crowdfunding rules do is take that concept and expand it exponentially through the digital world. So let's first talk about donation-based. It's already in existence. It's already active. It is currently operating in what I think is a fairly unregulated space, even though there are large sums of money being raised. The disclosure requirements are de minimis or non-existent because essentially in exchange for the cash being donated or a gift, you're actually receiving a tangible product or a subscription, some of which are developed and some of which aren't. The biggest collector of a donation for a startup was the Pebble watch, which sought, I think, to initially raise about $100,000 and ended up raising over $10 million. But we've also discovered that they have some issues with regard to the number of products that they can actually produce, and there are obviously some tax issues with regard to that as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The current platforms, which will probably be big players in the equity base, are Kickstarter, Indiegogo. There are other ones, but those are the big two, and about 50% of the donation-based crowdfunding is occurring in the film industry. So if you want to learn more about what it really looks like, go to Kickstarter or Indiegogo and you can see what the process is. I think the equity-based process may be a little bit more sophisticated, may require more disclosure, but the concepts and the best practices will essentially be the same. What is the difference? The equity-based crowdfunding is an actual investment in the company. In other words, you'll be selling some sort of share or ownership interest in a company in exchange for the cash in a typical investment format. There may be opportunities to do combinations of equity and debt, a preferred stock, something that has a conversion. Those things are still in the offing, but essentially to the extent that it's considered a security, that will be regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission as an investment in the company. The most important issue in this whole process has been the investor protection. We have a large number of people investing a small amount. Like I said, the donation side has been typically $25 to $35. And so as a result of that, the governing agencies are concerned that people in this category have a very much reduced chance and ability for due diligence. So let me just talk about that for just a minute. Typically, angel and investment banking groups do because there's so much money involved in the investment, have the time, resources, and ability to go in and do due diligence on a company. Because we have people who are essentially putting a smaller amount of money in, they will not have that equal access. So one of the big issues is, of course, how are we going to provide them the best kind of information possible without overkill, because one of the reasons why the current system isn't working for the family and friends funding is that it's just too expensive to go out there, hire a securities attorney to prepare a private placement memorandum, and second of all, to actually find somebody who is willing to invest in your company for the long term. So this is an issue that has been very, very at the forefront of the issues with regard to the regulators. The other issue is that the company requirements have to be organized in the United States. It cannot be an investment company, and it can't already be registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We could talk about each of these areas for probably 20 minutes in and of itself, but this is just the 35,000-foot view of what's happening with crowdfunding. Other issues, what can the company do? The company can raise up to $1 million, less other securities offered. In other words, if you've done a private placement for $200,000, that may be included in that $1 million per year. But there is some indication the Securities and Exchange Commission may exclude other investors who have already made an investment in the company. We don't know about that yet. The frequency, you can raise up to $1 million on a 12-month rolling period and then start over again. There may be some limit of a total limit of $5 million. It's not known exactly yet whether that's going to be the requirement, but for sure we know that you're going to be able to raise up to $1 million. How do you do it? You're going to be soliciting funds through basically a portal, which is much like the Indiegogo and Kickstarter format, a place on the internet where investors will go to invest. The portals will not be soliciting or advertising or generating any buzz about your company. They will be just the vehicle in order for you to see companies in which you can invest. Let's talk about the initial disclosure requirements. We'll go over this quickly. What kind of due diligence is the company going to be required to produce? If you're raising under $100,000, you might have a certification by the officers or income tax return. If you're $100,000 to $500,000, you probably have to have reviewed financial statements. And if greater than $500,000, you're probably going to have audited financial statements. The little new company question mark in the top right corner there says we don't know exactly what's going to happen for companies that don't have any financials yet that are a startup. We're going to be learning about that later. Dilution, the investors must be informed of the dilution, and this is going to be a key strategic area, especially for people like me, because we don't want to have the dilution in the company be so great that in the event that the company needs additional capital, they cannot go out because their company has been too greatly diluted. There are some strategies to employ there so that you may be attractive for somebody who might want to do some mezzanine financing with you, and there are ways that we can do that. But that's going to be a key strategy for companies that go out there and try to raise money. You don't want to over-dilute yourself, and